Hi, I'm Edwin
And I am Jack, and welcome back.
to the 950 Club.
Whoop, whoop.
Woohoo! Hi, guys, and welcome to our summer review. This is the first, non-episodic show we're going to be doing for our second season. I'm excited to get in here and talk about these shows. Yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover. I'll be doing my Isekai roundup in this segment, and next segment, Jack will be doing his slice of life vending machine corner. Yep, he's excited for that. We're excited to talk about these shows. So let's jump in.
Yeah, and basically how we evaluate towards it is like anytime you watch a new season of anime, there's weak ones and there's strong ones, and ones in between. We just don't know, and we usually rank it from lowest to highest.
That's right. We don't usually, there'll be shows that we see previews for, whether I'm searching YouTube and the various YouTubers who cover anime. I'll look to see what they're talking about. Then I'll look to see what's on my anime list. Not only that, yeah, there's a variety of places where we look to because we follow Crunchyroll,
High dive.
High Dive, and other places on Netflix on our Instagram account, which you guys should check out.
Yes, yes.
Definitely at 950 Club.
950 Club Anime Podcast.
Check that out. And so we make a list of stuff that we want to watch, and then we check it out. And some, invariably rise to the top, and some just get left on the wayside.
Like I like to meet that one person who watches every single episode.
There's no way.
Yeah, even the ones in Japan, even the ones that are not even finished in production.
Yeah,
I dare you. I double dog dare you. Because it's summer season, of course, is not the strongest of the bunch. It's always that like wild card season. You just know if you're going to like all the shows or hate all the shows. And most of the shows this season were catch ups, essentially. Like if you haven't caught up with Devil's a Part-Timer, for example, yeah, this is the time to do it. Overlord is in season 4.
Rent a Girlfriend.
Rent a Girlfriend as well. Things like that. And there's no shame if you haven't caught the first season at this point. You got to go back and watch the rest of it. And some, I would argue, you could just jump right into it. So,
well, every season is going to have its originals and its, like follow-up seasons. That's always going to be the case.
yeah.
And so you're going to have some seasons that are strong and some seasons that are weak. I thought, well, for summer season, I don't know if they think that people are maybe doing other things, so they're not as focused, so they don't release the stronger shows that I know are going to be coming. The winter season this year was exceptionally strong.
Yeah.
And so I think that this fall season looks like it's going to be really strong.
It's gonna if you taking the cake, and yeah, like I said, the summer you can be cash.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about pretty much like best of the year contenders.
You're getting close. You're getting close.
Very.
Yeah. It's the final season, and there's going to be when we cover that, there's going to be a lot to talk about because this year had some surprise, some shows that that were surprising.
Yeah.
But you had some favorites that came back and gave strong performances, like Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah, and then you have coming up in the fall, you have My Hero,
Yeah.
which people I know are going to be going crazy for. It's their 6th season. There's going to be a lot to look out for, but then you have some darlings, some new darlings like
Chainsaw Man.
well, not only Chainsaw Man, but Spy Family and My Dress Up Darling.
Yeah, the
I
second
think-
seasons.
Yeah, I think they were Well, they had really strong showings this year, and I know that they're going to go on people's best of lists
Easy,
for
easy.
sure.
Especially if they're rounding up for the year. So
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into this. Let's get into the Isekai Roundup.
Yep. Edwin's specialty.
That's right, where I bring you the Isekai that I watched this season, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy, and a ranking of my worst to best. We'll begin with Harem Building in Another World, based on a light novel. Why this show isn't a hentai, I don't understand.
Was it like World's End Harem kind of thing?
Kind of, sort of. It's not. So there were some things that I actually liked about this. It's definitely mature. This is mature content. This is your standard. It follows the tropes very, very closely, but it doesn't do it in a humorous or ironic way. Like, this is a straight, like, I've been reincarnated into the world, and I'm going to build a harem. Like, there's no, like, they make no excuses for themselves. This is what the show is.
How Not to Summon a Demon Lord kind of does that too.
How Not to Summon a Demon Lord makes it funny.
Okay.
You know, there's humor, there's uncomfortableness, there's like awkwardness
Yeah.
that you can find charming. There's none of that here.
Oh no.
No,
Oh no.
no, there's none of that here. The charm, the Roxanne, the maid, the I want to say the beast person maid that the main character purchases. She was charming.
Okay.
It's a cute show. Well, it's definitely it's rated for adults. It's rated for adults, and yeah, the content is there. The explicit scenes are covered up. They're blocked. The sound isn't, but the other scenes are, pretty explicit, and the show covers them up. Thankfully, because otherwise, like I said, this show would be a hentai. There is a very Faustian nature to this show, where when Michio purchases the Roxanne from Alan, the slave merchant.
Is it the same slave merchant from from Rising Shield Hero?
No, no. Well, Rising the Hero, that is a caricature of
Betty.
a vaudevillian villain,
Yep,
like
yep.
a mustache twirling, like.
The most ridiculous one ever.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just like
That's like slave merchant IQ 101.
they didn't even bother to hide the fact. With Alan in this show, in Harem Building Another World, it's very like almost you're making a deal with the devil.
Okay, so
Yeah.
even more of a caricature.
No,
Or a different, like a character you expect kind of thing.
a little more sophisticated.
Okay.
In hiding, almost like Marvel's The Collector,
Oh, okay.
in a sense.
That's a good comparison. Okay.
Yeah, this show tries to give you a more. It tries to be more realistic. It doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
From commonplace to world's greatest,
Yeah.
Aphrodite. I'm looking at them where it's just like, oh god, it's so ridiculous and over the top, and the harem building is just like.
So, well, explain to me, how does the harem start?
So the odd thing about this show is that Roxanne is only the ever character
Mm.
that he actually purchases.
Okay, he has
yeah.
an opportunity to purchase others, but
Well, he comes to the conclusion because him and Roxanne are essentially dungeon diving. They're going through the dungeons, and he is worried about her. He's worried about them because they've had some close calls. This is toward and full disclaimer: we're recording this before the end of the summer season.
yes, I forgot to
So
mention that.
there's some conclusions to these shows that we haven't seen yet, because they're not over. And I see him going in the direction toward the beginning of the show. There is a quick flash forward where you see him with maybe about half a dozen different women,
Yeah.
and some of them are shown in the opening.
Okay.
But the first season is pretty much devoted to Roxanne and him establishing himself in this world. And I'm like, do you really think that you're going to get further seasons to play this out? And I'm like, I don't see that happen.
I'm pretty sure it's like one of those ones like roll the dice. Good luck.
I'm wondering on the fan base for this one, because it's a mature show.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't do much to separate itself, except that it's a little bit edgier,
Seems like it.
and in some
yeah.
instances, it's a little bit more sophisticated
Okay.
than other harem building shows. But I just don't. For me, there's not enough to say, "Hey, you got to watch this." If you're older, like college student and above, I'd say maybe.
Kind of like a passerby kind of one.
I don't even know. It's like,
It's the weakest one for a reason, kind of thing.
well, I almost didn't include it on
Yeah.
the list.
Wow. Okay.
But
not even for a roundup. Wow.
yeah, it almost didn't make the list because I was like, while I like the edginess of, for me, my favorite character is a character that's barely on screen,
Wow. Okay.
and that's Alan, the slave merchant.
Okay. Okay.
Because he does have a more sophisticated quality to him, for being in such a standard isekai.
Yeah.
And he essentially owns the closing. He sings the closing. The entire closing is like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a very like, okay, you want the wealth, but you're gonna have to pay for it. I get
That's the
the sense.
devil.
Yeah,
The devil's not exactly the devil, as they say.
yeah. So there's definitely like that Faustian bargain
Okay.
that's being made here.
I'm kind of interested now.
Well, in order to get Roxanne, he essentially commits murder. Yeah. So in this world, it's established very quickly
yeah.
that if you can't behave yourself, you don't go to jail. You get essentially banished from society. You get kicked out of society, and
Yeah.
you have no choice but to become a bandit. And bandits band together. And if you attack a village, if you, as a bandit, attack someone, they're within their rights to kill you.
Mm.
I mean, that's it.
Okay. Okay.
That's it. They can take your life, and that's perfectly legal. And so he hunts these two bandits and essentially kills them in their sleep in order to collect the bounties on them to be able to afford Roxanne.
Hmm.
And that did not sit well with him.
Okay.
Like, he had a moment where he was like, kind of like, what have I done?
Hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting character moment that you don't see in a lot of isekai.
Yeah.
They don't stop to like kind of question. It's like,
Especially if they're in another world. Like, what are the rules of land?
yeah, I
Or
mean,
at least, am I in a new reincarnated form? Should I be doing this?
well, the other characters kind of like, there's moments earlier in the show where they kind of give him the impression that, that even that is kind of distasteful.
Yeah. Okay.
That somebody's committing crimes by killing these bandits.
Hmm.
It's like a rivalry between the gangs, between the bandit gangs.
Yeah.
And so he is pretty aware that most of the other people kind of frown upon this behavior. The guild doesn't, because the guild will check his ID and say, "Oh, okay, we'll give you. Here you go."
Yeah.
And he's OP, and they go through the motions on that. Him fighting in the dungeon, his transportation magic, his one kill sword, his one hit kill sword. They go,
Akame.
yeah,
Akame style. Nice.
they go through all that. But that felt more like going through the motions of an isekai. It's like, yeah, these are the standard things that you have to do to have an isekai.
Well,
Yeah.
for your weakest one, it's pretty interesting.
Well, it's interesting because I felt that there were moments that made it a little bit more, this moral gray area.
Yeah, and of course with the harem itself, it's like, ooh. Okay.
Well, you already have with the harem building in general. Is like you get into that moral gray area where you're like, is this just male fantasy, or is there some point to this?
Good call.
Yeah,
Good
like
call.
with How Not to Summon a Demon Lord.
Different parody. It's a parody.
It's a parody, but it's funny and it's
Yeah.
humorous, and there's
There's jokes.
there's some illicit content, but it doesn't go overboard.
Yeah.
In this, it's so much they had to cover it up to not be a hentai, like I said.
Yeah.
But what interested me and what made me watch most of the show was that moral. I kept wanting
Moral
to see.
gray. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, is the character going to have the conflict? What is he willing to do in order to, and what is the cost going to be?
Okay.
But then like there's 2 episodes. I think there's about 2 episodes left of the season, and I'm just like, all right, where's the harem building?
Oh, okay. Ah, okay. So
There's
it kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
well, there's one character. It's
Oh, okay.
Roxanne.
Roxanne is still technically the only harem.
Well, they spend so much time on the illicit content that you can't see anyway. That you're like, all right,
Oh, okay.
you
So
could have.
it's balancing the scales kind of problem.
Well, my thing is this: like, you could have spent that time like actually bringing in the other characters.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And it's like, okay, so that's where my question is like, who is this show for? Yeah, you have a more adult morality questions, but at the same time, I felt that the illicit content was so distracting and unnecessary unless you want that kind of stuff that I was like, I don't know who this is for.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's World Harem building in another world. I mean, if you want to check it out, there's enough there to like maybe watch it, but I can't say, hey, you guys need to watch this. If you want to check it out, I think that those moral gray area questions will maybe keep you watching. But if you're there's if you're uncomfortable with the illicit content, I say that it's not the show for you. And if you're looking for the illicit content, it doesn't give you that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All right.
neither of those camps are going to be like, this is the show for me. So moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on.
All right.
So the next one on the list is My Isekai Life.
Okay. I thought you would have that higher.
I didn't because, and I'll tell you why. I like the manga.
Yeah, and you mentioned in our manga recommends.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I like the structure of it. The only problem is that this show kind of goes nowhere fast.
Okay.
The beginning is really cool. Yuji, I like him, but he quickly becomes a cipher. There's the wolf that joins his pack, and then the gaggle of slimes. That's it for characters. That's literally it for characters. He goes from town to town, essentially blowing up dragons along the way, being as OP as he possibly can. Toward the end of the season, he essentially takes down a kaiju. A kaiju level,
Wow.
a kaiju level dragon, and that's it. That's pretty much the entirety of the show. There's not much. I mean, it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. The slimes are funny. There's a subplot about a religious cult that's trying to end the world.
Yeah.
But you don't really. Most of the towns and people that he visit are just flashed by really quickly.
Okay.
They're just kind of. They're not really developed. They're just there to service the plot. So it moves along very quickly. The magic is spectacular. The animation is fun. Like I said, the slimes are funny. But it's just your standard isekai. I
Okay.
mean, and it doesn't really. There's no. And I mean, it's pretty tame too. There's no like he's a beast tamer. But it doesn't rise to the level of like, hey, you guys. I'll say watch it if you're looking for fun.
Okay.
If you're looking for just like a fun basic isekai, because it doesn't get into any of the other it doesn't get into any tropes, so you're pretty safe with that. It doesn't get into any there's no illicit content, so this is something that I don't know, like your kid could watch.
Yeah, and he mentioned about the manga itself, like how the anime took its made most of the manga like in a flashback form.
Yeah, I mean, so the manga is even more straightforward.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more straightforward, but you do get a little bit more interaction. With the anime, they decided to jump right into the action and tell the other things in flashbacks. Now, I only read the first volume of the manga. I enjoyed that. I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of cool. I enjoyed the artwork and the story, but that kind of gets lost in the rest of the anime where you don't get really anything. You get his magic system and the spells that he's developing. Him and his group of like animals, they become more powerful as time goes on because they're facing larger and larger threats
Okay.
as the show goes on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that in the last arc, the threat has to be like earth ending.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, so I don't really see where this is gonna. If you're looking for something fun that's safe to watch, this is the show.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't do anything original. I thought that the interactions maybe with the Proud Wolf, that's about it.
Okay.
I mean, it was pretty standard, pretty basic. Your fun isekai, my isekai life. Yeah, not much to write home about. It doesn't have the moral complexities of the previous show, Harem Building Another World. But I think if you like isekai, it's a fun show to watch.
All right.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah. And then moving on to the next one is the Black Summoner.
First I've heard of it.
Hmm.
Definitely got lost in shuffle. Tell.
Well, this one did get lost in the shuffle. This one was an anime, or this was also, I read the first 2 volumes of the manga on this
Okay.
one.
Okay.
And I really like that one. I really like this one. This one's a little bit more, there's a lot more going on than in My Isekai Life. There's a little bit of harem building in this one, at least way more than harem building in Another World.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not even the highlight, but it kind of sneaks it in. Like, yeah, we do this our way.
Well, it's in there, but it isn't. It isn't the point of the show.
Yeah.
The point of the show quickly becomes Kelvin's search to become essentially the strongest. He's essentially a battle junkie, and so yeah, yep.
I like that trope. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, he essentially wants to test himself against every strong opponent that he can. He essentially, at some point, he actually battles the heroes party. He pretends to be the leader.
Like Dario with Dragon Ghost House.
Yep. He essentially pretends to be this group of villains.
Okay.
That are terrorizing a town just so that he can face off against the heroes party to see if he's stronger. And it turns out that he is.
Okay.
He pretty much schools them pretty bad, and it was hilarious. I liked that a lot. So he gets summoned to another world, and he's a character to begin with because he essentially trades away his memories in order to have the goddess be one of his summons.
Oh, I thought it'd be like to get stronger.
No,
Oh.
for her to be one of his summons because he's so in love with her. She's so beautiful.
Oh, okay. So there's the harem.
Oh yeah,
Kind of side. Right.
So he's like, okay, he gets summoned in another world with no memories of who he is, and so he's freaked out when he hears this voice. The voice of the goddess Melifina
Okay.
comes to him, and he's like, "Who are you?" And so she explains everything to him, that he died, and that when he was brought before her, he found her so beautiful that he wanted her to be his wife, and that he would sacrifice anything so that he could be with her forever.
Oh, almost like a fable. Oh.
Yes. And so he
A harem fable.
always, this is anime we're talking about. So he trades his memories so that he can have Melifina as a summons. And he's like, "Won't they miss you?" She's like, "Oh, I had one of my angels. One of my angels is covering it." He's like, "So this is a vacation for you?" And she's like, "Well, essentially." She's like, "You're just trying to get away from your duties."
Okay.
Yeah. So it's funny. There's some great fight scenes. The animation is okay. I felt that
Like the manga's a little bit better? Or?
the manga's a little bit better. I think the artwork in My Isekai Life might have been a little bit more well done.
Okay.
Yeah. There's moments where both of the shows are a little lacking in the animation department, but otherwise, I thought that they were really good. There's some computer generated items. There's some computer generated stuff going on in this one. One of the characters, Gerald, is a king that essentially, well, no, he was a knight hundreds of years ago.
Okay.
And he dies, and essentially he's a ghost protecting the castle. And so Kelvin has to fight him off at a certain point. And this was one of the things that was earlier in the show, and one of the things that I read in the manga is when Kelvin actually starts out, he gets recruited by a party who is essentially using noobs, killing noobs in order to
killing noobs and building harems, baby.
Yeah. And so he defeats the party. There's a slime. He begins with a slime by taming a slime.
Okay.
And
Useful.
He grows from there. Yeah. And like his harem. Like there's a slave that he purchases.
Oh, it's just like world's or the harem one. Okay.
Yeah, her name is Eiffel. He lifts her curse because her curse is that anyone that she touches will burst into flames. Yeah, it's nasty.
Oh, but
And
interesting,
so, yeah,
unique, very.
yeah. When he purchased her, she's like, "What are you doing? Why do you want
Oh,
this?"
almost kind of like Rogue. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Why do you want this? This is terrible." But he lifts her curse. It's a nice moment in the show. From there, it gets a little bit wonkier and a little bit more traditional. Becomes a little bit more traditional
Adventure by
isekai.
adventure kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You have your different arcs. There's the arc where he releases the demons. So the former demon king was defeated, and his daughter was locked away. And Kelvin finds them, and he defeats her guardian. And she's released back into the world, and her guardian is like, "Well, can you take care of her?" And so she becomes one of his summons.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, she becomes one of his summons. There's the arc with the where he fights the heroes, where they go traveling, and this is also so that he can get rice. Yeah,
Huh.
that's where the adventure begins.
Okay.
Then there's the return of Melifina, and when she grants him her blessing, part of the blessing is that he will recover from one mortal wound a month. So once a month,
A healer. Wow.
yeah, once a month he can survive a mortal. Like if somebody tries to kill him, if ever he ends up dying, he'll be resurrected.
Almost like Shield Hero. Whenever there's a wave that's a month, like there's a timetable.
There's a
aspect.
timetable for that. Yeah,
So is it kind of also? Oh yeah, that's right. Because you mentioned how he's. It almost has a video game aspect towards it.
yeah, very much so. He has like there's classes. He can people have rankings,
Yeah.
and he can scan them and see their rankings. Well, I mean, I think that's standard in most isekai now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's usually some kind of computer. Even in my Isekai Life, he gets almost a listing, like a screen listing
Yeah.
of the different spells that he has, and he can go through them and combine them, which is very video game like.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this one, in Black Summoner, when she gives him the goddess's blessing, her blessing, Melifina's blessing, he's also able to summon a hero.
Wow.
And so he uses all his magic to summon a hero. And it's this essentially middle school girl who was ill her entire life and had always been in a hospital bed. And so he summons her without realizing because he has no control over who it's going to be. And he says, do you want this? And she's like, of course, I can live a life now.
Okay.
Yeah. Essentially, he takes her as his sister. So she becomes his like little sister who has the abilities of a hero.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the last episode that I watched, and I'm excited to see where it goes for the final two episodes. But this was fun.
Okay.
It was fun. I enjoyed the manga, what I read of the manga, and I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed Kelvin's attitude from beginning to end. I thought that this was much more well developed story wise than My Isekai Life was.
Yeah.
And while there is some harem building aspects to it, there's not really any of the explicit content that you would find.
Yeah.
So I think this one too is
Just underneath the sand a little bit. It needs to be dug up.
well, I think people will like it. I think that it definitely needs more attention than I think that it got. I think it got lost in the shuffle for this season.
Yeah, I first have heard of it.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of surprised to see it because I hadn't heard of it.
And was it through High Dive or Crunchyroll?
This was on Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll. Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
This was one of the ones where I hadn't realized that they were turning it into an anime. I hadn't seen any previews for it.
Maybe over that Funimation nonsense.
I don't know, but it didn't get promoted as much as I think some of the other shows did.
Yeah, and it's like I said, summer's always a crapshoot.
But I was happy to see that it had been turned, and I was excited to see some of the storylines that I had read in the manga come to
Fruition.
Yeah. And so I like this one a lot. But it's pretty standard. There's some funny moments. There's some good bonding between the characters. Yeah. If anything, check this one out. Check this one definitely. The other two, I can't really give my full recommendation, but for Black Summoner, yeah, I say definitely watch.
Okay.
Hmm.
Alrighty. I'm sold.
And then moving on to the next one is Uncle from Another World.
Okay. I'm surprised you have this there.
Why, Jack?
I thought you would rank it higher.
I was going to, but there's two other shows that I felt deserved a little bit more attention
Alrighty. I'm
than
curious. I'm very curious because
there. Yeah.
this is a pretty cool one.
Well, my thing with this show is that it's not. It's an isekai, but there's some really weird things going on.
Oh yeah, it's a
And
super weird show.
and I think that this one spends a lot of time trying to make you laugh.
It's
Uh
very dry comedy.
yeah, it's very, very dry comedy. It's hilarious. The moment when his nephews the moment when he uses his abilities to bring his nephew's memories onto the screen, onto his magic projection screen, and you see this boy beating the crap out of him, or actually saving him from the other bullies and bullying everybody, and you realize that that's his childhood friend who is the woman who comes to visit.
Yep.
You're just like,
Oh, you're in for a treat.
I'm like,
It's such a wonderful setup.
I'm like, what is this show? That made me laugh. I was cracking up.
Well, to explain,
Yeah,
this uncle, he was in a coma for over 20 years.
he was.
Yeah. Well, the thing, or if I'm doing my math right, the manga itself,
I believe it's 17 years.
17 years. This anime takes place in 2017, and the main character was in a coma since 2000.
Yes. Yeah.
And think about what's happened in the last 17 years in that stretch.
A lot.
A lot.
A lot. So I like this show, but it infuriates me at the same time.
Because of the tone?
Well, no. First, it's on Netflix, which
Okay, yeah, and that's like every time you see the opening, it says Netflix presents. I'm like, you didn't present shit. Get the fuck out of here,
Jack.
What? I'm sorry. Ease down on cursing.
Um, one of the frustrating things about this show is it was on Netflix and it kept disappearing from my watch list.
It's been a fickle thing, and they're apparently having a break right now as we're recording. I'm not sure if it's going to be another week or two, maybe even a month.
Well, I saw that 6 episodes were listed under the, when you check the episode listing.
Yeah, and it's similar to Comey. It was one episode per week kind of thing.
Yeah, which is like pretty much Netflix's way of kind of like
simulcasting.
yeah, simulcasting, kind of meeting anime fans halfway. It's still, I don't know why I find it so frustrating.
I personally think it's kind of a drawback. I think they have to for Netflix. You're Netflix guys. I'm sorry. Like there's a distinct difference between how you run your shows compared to your other productions. And anime should be in the same repertoire, in my humble opinion.
Well, I think I just find it annoying having to go to Netflix to watch my anime.
That's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
Netflix, you're fine with the binging model. Keep at it. Like if you're doing
Well,
simulcast, you're just not up to speed. You're just not.
No, I'm okay. See, that's just, it's weird because it's like, all right, I'm only going to Netflix for a few different anime. So if the show keeps disappearing from my watch list, I'm gonna get frustrated.
Yeah,
It's like, why? It's just weird.
yeah.
It's like,
and
all right,
I think they had a stalled delay as well. Like around the second or third episode, I remember trying to check it out. I'm like, "Where's this?" Because it debuted every Wednesday, I would say.
yeah, and
Then it didn't show. I'm like, "What's the deal, guys?"
well, it would just disappear, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, is this
And-
over?
and I
Is it gone?
And if I'm not mistaken, the delay is over COVID in Japan. So
Okay, well, that's understandable.
yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, guys, this is not good.
No. I'm okay that it was streaming weekly. I didn't have a problem with that. My problem was that it, like I said, it kept disappearing, and the show is really weird. It's like, it's very meta in that, okay, I'm sitting on my couch watching them sit in front of a table watching them watch an isekai.
Drinking coffee.
Yeah, and so I'm like, it gave me this feeling of like, what am I doing? Am I watching an isekai or am I watching people watching an isekai?
It's a reverse isekai.
It's definitely a reverse isekai. I mean, he comes home and I get it. It's a deconstruction, and it's kind of like a here's my uncle, and this is what he went through.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. I wouldn't even consider it a parody. It's just more of an aspect of a story element.
it is. It's a parody in that
the consequences of coming back from another world.
Well, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
What he goes through is his experiences there are horrifying.
Yeah.
Like this man goes through some like.
Well, it's in the intro itself. We have to talk about the intro. Because it's set up like a Sega showcase of all these great classics.
Yeah.
Every frame is a different, from like Moon or Star to a little bit of Beastman. Yeah, and a lot of obscure ones from Japan too.
These people, you can tell that the creators of this show love the Sega.
They love the Sega.
This is their love letter to Sega.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is during that intro, they have a weird 180 because it shows two very dark moments where there's blood on a notebook, and then in the notes he's in a jail cell, it looks like, and a note saying "Get me out of here." I'm like, it's not shown yet. And all the dark moments, quote unquote, they show in the show so far, they're played for laughs. But underneath, yeah, it is dark. The more I think about it.
Well, I mean, it's darkly drawn too.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's a very. The uncle seems to have been, and he has this obliviousness that is par for the course when it comes to.
it's his character. Yeah,
Yeah, especially when it comes to harem building. It's like they almost have to have that obliviousness, or this would go somewhere.
Yeah, and it's very meta. That's the meta part there. Yeah.
Well, the meta part is like.
Because he in the character himself, he used to be a weeb. He used to be
You could tell. Well, definitely, he was definitely a weeb.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell that the creators didn't want to do like the standard isekai. They wanted to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, and this is 180. Yeah.
They managed to pull that off. I'm not sure how happy I was with that.
Okay.
I'm not really like I'm left here with like, did I laugh? Yes. Was it fun to watch? Yes. Did I fundamentally like this show? I'm not exactly sure. And that's why it ends up here instead of like other places, because it's like I felt that we were kind of like cheated.
Wow.
A little bit.
I'm surprised you have this.
Yeah, I'm
surprised. Very surprised.
I felt that we were kind of cheated from an isekai. That would have been.
I to be honest, I don't think it's not a traditional one. Yes.
No.
It's all the elements in play, and it's not exactly a parody, but I think it still has a strong bond with isekai.
I feel like this is all right. So here's a way to explain this.
All right.
Let's say you know how I feel about ReZero.
There we go.
Right?
And Konosuba. Yeah.
Let's say if Subaru was essentially a moron. And he came he came back to Earth, and he was sitting there and he's showing me his adventures.
Especially the times he dies.
Yeah, and he's saying, well, you know, I died.
Yeah, this blue-haired girl whacked me with her her mace.
Look, the little cat is essentially a god, and he froze the entire world.
And he blew my head off.
Yeah, several times. Yeah. So I feel like that's what's happening in this show. I think I just killed Jack.
Okay, I see your point now.
So, yeah. So I'm sitting there and like, I want to laugh, but I feel like I shouldn't.
It's dry for me. It's very like, oh, I get it. It's more like I relate to the uncle more than anything.
Well, the humor comes from the fact that it's his reactions to things.
It's nonchalant.
He's so out of touch with reality.
Even in reality, he's out of touch. Yeah.
He's so out of touch with reality and so clueless and oblivious that you're his. So the audience is essentially his nephew and his childhood friend.
who likes them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's you responding, reacting to this, and I'm just like, God, just sometimes I'm watching this and I'm just left like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like we mentioned, super dry. It's only like 2 or 3 locations in the weird world. The Isekai is definitely the world building aspect, and a
Yeah.
little bit with the characters too. One episode by episode. Once Netflix shows it, you get to see more of like fantasy characters. So yeah, it's a steady pace. I don't think it's like 180 every episode. It's more like a slow burn.
Yeah, I mean, well, within his memories, you see the standard isekai tropes playing
Yeah,
out. You
and
know,
like we said, one of my favorite lines is like, "Man, that other world really sucks."
it really does.
Yeah, yeah.
It really does, and that's the thing. It's like because that's what they're playing out. They're
Again,
playing out.
compared to their normal lives, which
Well,
is super.
well, compared to their
Yeah.
normal lives, and then compared to like other isekai, it's
Yeah.
like he manages to like make it through. You know, he manages to use his ability that he doesn't really understand as an ability to get through these different things, and it's like what?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it was for me. It was an experiment that I thought, that because their main focus was to tell this funny story in a modern setting,
Yeah.
like to have the reactions, kind of like I get it from the people who haven't gone through the Isekai world, and then the uncle who is essentially out of touch with reality, completely. And so I think that that's where the interplay comes from.
Yeah.
But it's hard to judge this from a standard isekai
It's
standpoint.
deconstructive. That's definitely the best term for it instead
Yeah.
of parody, because parody, like of course we mentioned how not to summon a demon lord, classic example of parody.
Yeah.
It makes fun of the tropes, like the Harem
Yeah.
building, well,
Yeah.
but this one's like no. Imagine if the OP comes back and he's like kind of a normal geek.
Yeah.
There you
Like,
go. That's the
hey,
story.
This is what happened to me, and then everybody's just like, "Oh my god!" It's that like we had this discussion with Martin where it's like, you kind of think that this would be cool, but oh my god, it's not.
It's a yes or no. It really is a yes or no. I feel like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely, I recommend this one. Watch this one. You're gonna like it. If you like Isekai, you'll like this. But it is not your standard show.
Yeah. And I'm surprised it's relatively low, but I have an assumption what your next 2 are. So
My next 3.
our next 3, wow. Okay. This is definitely a whole roundup.
So my next one is actually a sequel that I've been waiting for quite a long time. It is The Devil is a Part-Timer. Yep. Where Satan and his friends return to give you a second season. Oh my god, we waited for this for so long. Like so long. Like I had forgotten.
Almost 5 years.
Yeah, I had forgotten a lot of what had happened in the first season.
Yeah. And literally one of our earliest conversations, anime recommendations, Edwin recommended me this one.
That's right. We ordered the manga for the store, and I said, Jack, you should watch this one. You'll like it. Yeah.
And I have to confess, I've yet to. My strongest reason, I'm a seasonal guy. This is like perfect for Halloween season.
I get that.
And I'm definitely diving in October. That's my guarantee. So
yeah, this is your standard reverse isekai.
okay.
They've been brought to the human world. Satan is the demon lord. He was defeated by the hero. He escapes to modern day Japan. And it tells about the trials and tribulations of him and his lieutenants. And how they struggle to live in the modern day world, where he gets a job at a McDonald's-like restaurant. He gets a girl who has a crush on him, and the hero shows up to destroy him.
Okay.
That's pretty much the synopsis of the first season. You get like some subplots where the church comes to destroy him by unleashing Lucifer upon him. Lucifer was one of his lieutenants. Emilia, the hero, attempts to destroy him. We begin this season very oddly, where suddenly they have a child together. It's not an egg shows up from the other world, and when the egg hatches, it's a child.
Yeah.
So the child's name Alice Ramis.
Okay.
She is from essentially the Tree of Life, and angels have come down to try to retrieve her, but somehow she's under the impression that Satan and Amelia, the hero, are her parents. And so this becomes the baby arc, the awkward, uncomfortable baby arc. Yeah, where he has to struggle explaining to people, oh yeah, this is my kid. He says he's watching. He says it's a relative that he's watching. In this showdown between Amelia and the angels, Alice Ramis disappears and becomes her sword.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a good way to kind of like hide the kid when you don't need to have the kid around. Uh, this season starts off kind of slow. There was an awkward direction for me for it to go in.
Kind of like Shield Hero, or
Not as bad.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, not well. You know what, Shield Hero? Everybody was upset about the tortoise.
Yeah, it's a rough start. Rough
Yeah.
start.
I mean, this was kind of the same thing where it's like, wait.
You're just trying to get back in the motions.
Well, it was a lot of this show is about making Satan Mao, making him comfortable.
Oh, okay.
It's like it's one of those shows where it plays his these situations for laughs, and it's like the awkward situation of the enemy, the softening of their relationship. The hero, at some point, Amelia has guaranteed him that she will essentially take him out.
Yeah.
That's what the main focus of this season is, like bringing them together and kind of making them uncomfortable. Their affections toward the child, I think, kind of like bring them together, in as much as it makes them uncomfortable.
Okay. Okay.
So it's interesting in that way, and it plays out like you have the baby arc, and then they get into traveling, like the summer show where they travel to different parts of they travel to their landlord. Their house is destroyed by the angels, and so their landlord says, "Well, my cousin has a place by the beach. If you guys could go help her out, since you're not going to be working because they shut down." This essentially becomes the travel season
Yeah.
where for various reasons they take part-time jobs all over the country, whether it be working at the beach or working at a farm. And so that was really cool. Beyond that, the show really doesn't do much else. It spends the time essentially building the relationships. It spends this time kind of like bringing the characters closer together.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny moments when there's a group of college students who are stealing stuff from farms to get money essentially for beer.
Huh.
Yeah. And
It sounds like that 70s show.
pretty much. They could have been the characters from that 70s show. When Amelia kind of takes them out, like that was hilarious.
Okay,
Because when Mao transforms into his, demon lord form, the guy pisses his pants.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. But otherwise, I mean, I enjoyed it. If you enjoyed the first season, I think you'll enjoy this season. It's very different. It looks like they wanted to move around a little bit more and not just focus on, the same stuff that they were focusing on within, the first season where it's just, work and the different characters attacking them. You have some of that because you have the conflict and you have the battles that are a lot of fun to watch. And when one of his lieutenants is turned into like essentially like a pigeon,
Yeah.
that was pretty funny.
Okay. Okay.
And Mao is upset, Satan's upset. Stop saying tweet, like stop. You're not a bird. Stop.
Aw.
So that was kind of cute. And so it plays out pretty much like the first season, but like I said, they move around a lot. Um, the summer issue, if you're looking for the swimsuits, it's there.
All right. Well,
Yeah, if you're looking for that episode, that's there. The farm episode is a little cuter. They do battle against a bear, and Amelia gets the term bear slayer
Oh God,
because yeah,
Goblin Slayer and Bear Slayer.
she pretty much uses some wrestling moves on a bear, and everybody's like, "Oh my god!"
All right, all right.
Yeah, but it's all very cute. It's all very fun. Like I said, if you like the first season, you'll enjoy this season. Um, I don't know what they'll do for the last arc, but that should be fun to see.
Alrighty.
And then moving on to my next one, my second.
Wow.
Yeah, this is Parallel World Pharmacy.
That's the only one that where I had to figure on the trigger each and every time. It was like one of those things where I didn't know it was this past season or this coming year essentially. So
Yeah. So
wow.
why didn't you?
No, I got confused with the timetable.
Okay.
And like I said,
Well, there was one called Parallel World Pharmacy.
Yeah.
That was a few years back, and
Yes,
that was
yes.
kind of like my comfort anime.
Yes, and I got
for that
confused with
season.
that. I got confused with that.
That one was it was what it was. I
Okay.
mean, it was a comfort watch. It was
Nothing too harm. Like
not harmless at all.
yeah.
Like pretty zany.
Okay.
There was some moments where it was pretty funny. And then that was about it.
Yeah.
This one's very different.
Okay.
This one's different even for your standard isekai.
Interesting.
So the main character, Pharma, essentially he was a doctor in this world. In modern day Japan, he was a doctor who had he was a 40, like in his 40s.
Okay.
So he starts out life. Um, so he becomes a doctor because his sister passes away from an illness, and he wants to cure it.
Yeah.
And so essentially, he spends his life in medicine, either studying medicine or running his clinic, and he essentially works himself to the grave.
Wow.
Yeah, he works himself to death trying to find cures for these different diseases. And so he's reincarnated in another world as this Duke's son. And in this world, so there's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack here. And that's what kind of makes this show way more interesting than all the other shows on the list.
Yeah.
And that's why it gets my number 2 spot. I like this one.
Okay.
It's kind of weird because it became, while it's an isekai, it's not it's not your standard, like, it's not a feel good isekai, but it's not your standard harem building, like adventuring isekai either. It's kind of like, the way I describe it is like if Harry Potter went to medical school. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. Because here you have this boy in this world. Essentially, you can only become like a doctor
Yeah.
if you're part of the upper class,
Oh,
the aristocracy.
one I can't help but think of is this. What's the one with magic powers? Omnipotent. Omnipotent.
The saint's magic power is omnipotent.
That's
I think
the
is
one.
the one you're thinking
That's
about.
the one. Good call.
There's definitely some similarities in that she was an adult when she was summoned.
Okay.
But she stayed an adult in that one. In this one, Pharma is a child. He takes the place of the Duke's son. So like I was saying, in this world, you have the aristocracy. So in order to be part of the aristocracy, so only doctors really are the aristocracy. Because you have to be aristocracy to go to medical school. And there's 2 conditions to that.
Okay.
You have to be able to use magic, and you have to be that's first you have to do magic. If you don't do magic, you can't be part of the aristocracy. You're a commoner.
Yeah.
Commoners are, you're a commoner. And then so that gets you into the aristocracy. In the aristocracy, you can go to medical school.
Okay.
So commoners, no.
Out of the picture.
Yeah. So they have essentially their primitive medicine in their guild, in their pharmacy, and so the commoners really don't get a lot of attention medically.
Okay.
And so pharma kind of comes along and changes that. But there's a lot of things that happen along the way. Like they discover that pharma is, so essentially what happens to the boy that pharma replaces is he's struck by lightning.
Huh.
And when he's struck by lightning, essentially pharma enters into his body, and his son is no longer, the Duke's son is no longer there. And so this 40-year-old middle-aged man takes over, essentially takes over Farmer's body. and he becomes him. And his goal is he discovers that he has certain powers. His magic is OP, off the chart, to the point where his tutor is like, "What are you?
Wow.
You are not human." And she discovers the fact that he can do magic without casting, without a wand. The magic just comes, and he has no shadow.
Oh wow.
He has no shadow. So she's terrified. She is terrified of him.
Oh
It's
man.
pretty funny,
Ah.
but at the same time, it gives you it's a cool way of like telling you that pharma is very different, and you start to be like, you know that he's a reincarnated character, but you start to sense that in this world he might be a lot more than that. Yeah, that he's entered this world, but with the level of powers, but they don't. He doesn't. The only thing he does with it is start a pharmacy,
Okay.
which was like, okay, like you have this magic, and it plays out later on where there's some actual magic battles, like when he uses his magic to save his sister. People witness it,
Mm.
and the church in this world, if you're a heretic, they will kill you. Yeah, if they find out that you're, using magic abilities that you shouldn't or can't have, they will try to destroy you.
Okay.
And there's a pretty cool battle that happens toward the later half of the season that I thought, wow, this is really cool. And so it's that kind of like, it's not your standard isekai, and it tries to be something very different. I think if anything, it's the show that for me, like the Saints Magic Power is omnipotent. That's a
That's the one.
that's a similar one. But to me, it reminds me a little bit of Ascendance of a Bookworm.
Oh, so it has the charm factor.
It
Okay, no, so minus the charm.
not as much.
Wow.
Well, the problem with Pharma is that he's kind of bland.
I was about to say kind of straight. It sounds straightforward too. More I
It's
think about
really straightforward. It has these.
it. Saints Power is pretty straightforward too.
It's pretty straightforward, but that one, I think that one succeeds a little bit more because it's a romance.
Yeah.
So it has that going for it.
Yeah, yeah.
In here, because they chose to make Pharma a child, you don't really have that romantic aspect. So most of your conflict comes from the world building.
Okay.
And a lot of it, some of the episodes are essentially just like establishing like his pharmacy, the conflicts with the, like him essentially becoming more his getting his pharmacy because he heals the queen.
Yeah.
Him using just basic medicine or the abilities that he has to create and destroy things, which is really unusual in this world to begin
Okay.
with.
Yeah,
He gets into this pretty cool like ice duel with his dad
yeah.
toward the beginning. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and I wish that it was a little bit more developed and a little bit more complex because there's definitely room for it.
Yeah.
Um, and some things just kind of get resolved too quickly, but I think that that's because they're establishing sides. Toward the end of it, the last episode that I watched, they introduced a character that you see in the opening credits. That I was like, "Whoa, who's that?" He kind of looks like it looks a little bit like a Dementor.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm like, "Oh, that looks really cool.
Okay.
What are we
Huh.
gonna see?"
Huh.
And so they spent most of the show like establishing, pretty much being your basic pharmacy, kind of like, "Oh, okay, like here's a pharmacy." Kind of like the merchant aspect of like, hey, you have a pharmacy, but you know what? You could probably attract more people if you sold makeup. And so he sells makeup that actually doesn't kill people, because it doesn't have lead or different kinds of poison in
All
it.
right, all right.
So there's different things where it's like it it tries to break out of that basic like isekai, those some of those tropes where it's like, oh, I have advanced knowledge from another world, so I'm gonna use it to do this. Where Ascendance of a Bookworm uses that on a much grander scale to like,
It really helps the character kind of thing.
well, not only that, but you see the struggle along the way.
Yes, and the gain of knowledge.
In this
too.
one, there isn't as much of a struggle. It's kind of like too easy.
Okay.
But you do see that Pharma cares about people. He wants to heal people, and he doesn't care who they are.
Okay.
Whether they be aristocracy or commoner, that's his goal, and that he has these powers that are almost godlike, but that they don't kind of get used in the way that other isekai would use them.
Okay.
But I do like that toward the end of the first season, he's facing two threats: the bubonic plague, yeah, the bubonic plague, and the carrier for them, which is this Dementor-looking dude.
Huh.
So I'm really interested to see how those last two episodes play out, and not only that, but it's like, where do you go from here? Because I want more.
Yeah.
I want more of this. This was like, I'm like, this is really cool. You have this world building, you have this magic, you have this OP. What are you going to do with it? You know, like, where is this going to go? And it made, it's the second spot because it is so interesting to me, and because it chooses to have these different elements and where you can see this conflict played out. I just wish that there had been more of that, because I think that I'm down.
Okay.
I'm watching this toward the end. I'm telling you guys to watch this because I enjoyed this, and I think you'll like it too, because it has those elements. It's like, this is what you want from an isekai. You want the magic, you want the conflicts, you want the battles, but you also get that balance where it's not like, like everything's not forced and rushed, and they're not throwing they're not throwing slave girls at you.
Or harems.
Yeah, it's like you're not getting that stuff. It's just a good story with good conflicts where, there's a more of a respect for the characters and more development in the world building. Yeah, so you can see, like, it's not just standard, like, okay, here's the demon lord, I'm going to fight the demon lord.
Yeah.
There's more to it than that.
Fair.
And of course, speaking of the demon lord, my top isekai, surprisingly, because I didn't feel that this season of Overlord, which we spent 4 years waiting for, and that was like that was beyond their control, because I know that one of the voice actors passed away.
Yes.
So there were things beyond their control. I understand that, COVID and everything, but it had such a Overlord builds. Each season of Overlord builds toward a crescendo.
Okay.
Where, Ainz Al Ghul has his plot, he has his plan, and it comes to fruition. As clueless as he pretends to be, he always has a plan to do something. And it's always just jaw-droppingly, insanely, like, OP.
Wow.
Like the way the battle ended last season. And I'm sure that that's where this is going this season.
Really? So they're building up to a fifth season then?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, it's always, we'll see what happens, because his ultimate goal and the reason that he's doing any of this is essentially to attract the attention of people who might be other players. He wants to find out if he's alone in this world, and it always goes back to the vampire princess Shaltir.
Yes.
It goes back to who took control of her and why. That's the question that essentially has been burning through the seasons, because it shows him that there is somebody out there who may know what he actually is, and is a threat to him. Because if they can turn all of his friends' creations against him, they might be able to defeat him.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an epic battle. And in this season, he fought the Orc King, the Warrior King, which I thought was really cool in the tournament. It's pretty much played out. There haven't been very many surprises, but I have enjoyed it, and it's gotten better with each consecutive episode.
Yeah.
And
here's the thing. Edwin, from day one, mentioning about devilisaparttimer, Martin, literally our first conversation over anime, one of his current favorites is Overlord.
Yeah.
So I owe Martin catch up too, but same dilemma. It's more of a Halloween thing. That's just me.
Well,
Well, it's because I'm just weird like that.
With Overlord, there's definitely it's a darker tone to it. I mean, It's darker than, because Ainz Al Ghul is he's a villain.
Yeah, yeah.
He's the villain of the piece. I mean, as human as he acts toward these people, and as much respect as he shows them, he's still a villain. He's still gonna wipe out all these people, and it becomes that moral question of like, all right, even if you're in a game world, you're stuck there. So these NPCs that are, fully realized characters, you're killing them. And he's taking them out.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah.
taking them out. And he has his reasons for taking them out, but he's still taking them out. And so this is definitely a darker show than, let's say, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, which has a lighter tone. This season has had for Overlord, I think there's been a lighter tone, but there's definitely been those dark moments.
It's an overlayer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's the villain, and so and his characters, the creations that his different lieutenants, like Albedo or Demiurge, they were made to, subjugate humans.
Yeah.
They're villains, and so you get to see that play out, and he has to kind of like balance them between what his true goal is and what, his goal of building an empire, his goal of bringing in these different, attracting the attention of these people,
Gamers. Yeah.
of the gamers that might be stuck there with him. And you see all that play out. And I want to see what happens in the last two episodes because I'm really excited to see where this goes. But I'm also sad because it's like, the season's almost over and we waited so long for it, and it's like, will this be the end of it? Will there be more? It's like, this is too short.
Yeah, that's
12 episodes.
That's why
just,
your parents. It's gonna be season 5. And have you ever checked out any of the novels or the manga?
I haven't. Like you said, Martin, our friend, friend of the show, Martin, he has, and I've been talking to you, thinking about doing this where we read the light novels
Yeah,
of some show and then watch the anime,
or at least play it out.
so that we can get a kind of like the context, because I know he told me that he has a complicated relationship with Overlord.
Yes, and I was about to
Because
bring that up too.
he has read the light novels, and he says that the light novels are so much better than the show,
Yeah,
which, if it's true, I mean, that's insane because the show is pretty good in and of itself.
yeah. And light novels overall are having a revival, and it's kind of like because you like the character so much and the world so much and the tone so much. You definitely have to see what makes the anime adaptation work per se.
Yeah.
So the little details, even like Ascendance, even like Rising of Shield Hero. I'm reading those light novels. I'm like, what makes this world click? What did the original author or creator visualize? I'm like, I gotta know.
Yeah. And my thing with light novels is that sometimes there's things that work in a light novel that don't work in an anime.
Because it's too fanatical or too like only subtle, like that key detail that you'd be surprised.
Fantastical.
I said, God damn it,
Yeah.
fantastical.
Yeah, they're yeah, I get fantastical and fanatical are two, like they're like Albedo's love for Ainz Al Ghul, that's fanatical.
That's fanatical.
But the world building can be fantastical. Yeah.
English is not my strong suit.
Yeah, so it'll be like we might have to do an episode where we just read all of the light novels and watch all 5 seasons.
Well, at least the key
Overlord.
key takeaways, like the stark differences, like ones that are like, yeah, in the novel, this is how it plays out.
Well, I'm sure that, because you always have more room for development in a novel
Yeah,
than you do, because your page count compared to your script count in a novel, it's always going to be different.
yeah,
And it's always going to be, it's more expensive it's less expensive to write a novel than it is to produce a TV show that's 12 episodes.
yeah, that's true.
So stuff is going to get cut. Some things are not going to be as developed or as complicated because of just the form, the art form itself. Anime sometimes just can't.
Yeah.
And I get that. But I think that this season of Overlord, I think it continues to be good. I was happy to see a lot of the characters come back. I wish that I kind of wish that they had focused more on some of these characters instead of some of the subplots that we got. Some of the subplots that I was like, I don't really care about.
Yeah.
But I get that they have to go through this to get to where they need to go. And so I still think it was a strong season. I still want to see where it ends up. I was happy to have it back. I mean, I don't even think I need to recommend the show because I think the people who are watching Overlord,
Day one fans.
the day one fans, are not going to need me to tell them to watch this.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for Jack to be like, you gotta freaking catch up, bruh.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jack,
right.
you have to freaking catch up.
Halloween, give me spook. I only watch scary movies around October. Sue me.
Well, there you go. You can use, you can use October to catch up on all of these shows that we thought about.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, that is my Isekai roundup for this summer review. Check the shows out. I hope you like them. We'll have to take a look and see what kind of Isekai is coming up. I think it's still a strong genre. I still think there's a lot that they can do. I'm excited to see what's coming up. And we'll be talking about Jack's Vending Machine Corner coming up.
You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another great 950 Club session. Tune in next week as we're going to have part 2 of Jack's Slice Life Vending Machine Corner. Yeah, 2022 for anime in the summer season, A-okay. Surprisingly so. A little bit stronger than the spring season. And the Isekai as well. And yes, I have to catch up with a lot of great Isekai in general. But overall, Edwin did a great job rounding up all the Isekai this season. A lot of other great animes coming through comedy and drama. We get it. Overall, we're hoping to have a great finish to the rest of the year for anime, and we hope you listen in. Please like, subscribe, download, and share. It helps us tremendously. We're through our new Podbean services, and yeah, we're still through Spotify. If you can, just share, recommend it to another person who likes anime. We greatly appreciate it, and we appreciate the feedback as well. So once again, thank you for listening in, and goodbye.